Well, it's an iconic symbol, the bunny ears and the bow tie. And for nearly 4 decades, some have wondered if the death of a young cocktail waitress in St. Pete was connected to her time as being the Suncoast Playboy Bunny of the Year. Well, tonight on Unsolved Florida, Fox 13's Genevieve Curtis takes us back to the summer of 1984 and the young woman who was murdered in her apartment.
And now investigators are turning to new forensic testing in hopes of finally bringing answers to this 4 decades-long mystery.
Summer of 1984. Ronald Reagan was running for re-election. The Olympics were in Los Angeles. And in St. Petersburg, the Skyway was under construction. It was also that summer when Carolyn Merricks' sister couldn't reach her.
The relatives were trying to get a hold of her. They couldn't find her, and I think they ended up going to the house and finding her.
That's when St. Pete police detectives were called to her South St. Pete apartment and arrived to a gruesome scene.
She was located on the floor just inside a doorway. It looked like, a struggle had occurred in an apartment.
Merricks had been stabbed multiple times. Carolyn Merricks, just 28 years old, worked as a cocktail waitress at the Tierra Verde Yacht Club. But she had previously worked at the Suncoast Playboy Bunny Club. The club made headlines in the early 80s when hundreds of young women auditioned for coveted positions as cocktail waitresses at the club, with the iconic uniforms and the bunny ears. She was known as Bunny Chandra, and friends described her as beautiful, fun, and smart. They say she was one of the first black Playboy Bunny servers at the club, and she was even named Suncoast Playboy Bunny of the Year just 1 year earlier in 1983. It was a competition that won her a trip to LA. The club quietly closed in 1983, but it led some to wonder if her death could be connected to her notoriety or her job.
The detectives were very thorough, and they went over everybody that was personally known to her or who she was dating at the time too, or anybody at the club that she had contact with or at the apartment complex that she had contact with. They talked to all these people, but they were unable to forensically link them back to the scene at the time.
St. Petersburg detective Wallace Pavelski is now handling the investigation into Merrick's death. She left behind a 10-year-old son and a large family of brothers and sisters. She was originally from Bartow. Pavelski says nothing pointed to a robbery. He says it looks like she was getting ready for work when she was killed. Back in the 80s, detectives told the St. Petersburg Times they believe she knew her killer. Detectives also learned that Merricks was known to be extremely cautious.
She's not going to let you into her house unless she knows you. So, I don't think it speaks to anything being random at the time. I can't say that for sure, but I think just looking at her lifestyle, what she did, the way her relatives speak about her, it could have been somebody that she knew that she let into the apartment.
But there were several other stabbing cases of women in St. Pete in the 1980s. A few, like Merrick's case, remain unsolved even now. Back then, neighbors in South St. Pete began to hold meetings and were concerned about the crime.
I've had people harassing my customers and chasing them up and down the streets, and it took the police 4 phone calls, and I had to call 911 to finally get them there.
But Pavelski says he's looked into whether any of those cases could be connected.
Each one has their differences, which I could say in this situation would probably rule out a pattern.
Merrick's story was also recently featured in a series on Investigation Discovery called The Playboy Murders, hosted by former Playmate Holly Madison. The episode was titled The Summer of Hell. Back in 1983, the photographer who took the pictures of Merricks winning that Playboy Bunny of the Year competition, Linda Lanson, was found murdered. She had been raped and shot in Tampa. And then, just 1 year later, the bunny she photographed, Carolyn Merricks, was killed. For years after that, it left women connected to the club terrified that the murders could somehow be connected to the club. But in 2020, DNA evidence connected convicted killers Amos Robinson and Abram Scott to Lanson's murder and the murder of Barbara Grams. The pair are connected to several other murders from that summer, but both were locked up at the time of Merrick's death in 1984. And that leads back to the information that detectives gathered in 1984. Pavelski says there's been a significant amount of testing done in Merrick's case. And now he's hoping to turn to genealogy to unlock the mystery of what happened to her.
Now I'm actually doing hair analysis on the case too. So we've been able to work with a couple labs to do individual hair analysis on the case.
If and when Pavelski gets that answer, there's one more thing he'd like to do.
I'd like to hold somebody accountable and be able to talk to them and ask them why. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and the family members want to know why too. You know, why did this have to happen to my loved one?
For Unsolved Florida, Genevieve Curtis, Fox 13 News.
Anyone with information on the death of Carolyn Merricks is asked to contact the St. Pete Police Department.